But yeah, we're doing it again and we can't wait. We're all vaccinated. Can't wait. There's Mallory from Oakland. Hi, Mallory. Ruth is saying the silver lining of pandemic, able to access Harp stuff. That really has been wonderful, hasn't it, Ruth? And everyone. I mean, last week I was teaching at Ailey Robertson's Summer Harp Festival, and it was just a joy to be able to connect and actually start to recognize people from around the world, from Japan, New Zealand, Australia. We've got Finland, other countries in Europe, and in a way, this year has made the harp community a much smaller world. And I hope we don't lose a lot of that. I'll be happy if I never play another online concert in my life, but I hope that the online teaching doesn't stop, because it really, it provided me with a lot of focus and community during this time. And I've heard from the students that they've really loved the access that it's given them to different tutors, different styles of music. I'm curious to hear any more thoughts on that. Annie, just lovely to have you stay and learn the storm. Oh, good, Annie. I'll have to hear you play the storm sometime. Annie very kindly opened up her house, or her spare house in Yorkshire, when I went back to Scotland in December to see my parents. There was very strict quarantine rules for 2 weeks, so we stayed in Annie's spare house for 2 weeks and enjoyed the open fire, gin and tonics in front of the open fire, and lots of walks around the garden. We didn't dare leave the house, but lots of walks around the garden. So Annie, you were a godsend at that time. Thank you. We've got Anne Bauer. Hi, Anne. Judy, absolutely get in touch with Regina. Yeah, if you've got her email. I know that she was still trying to keep the camp small, but by all means, reach out. You know how she is. She'll let you know if there's space, and we'd sure love to have you. So yeah, go ahead and reach out. Evelyn, I'll be seeing you at Harp Camp, Evelyn, and great to see you here. How long it takes to pick up and load the car to get there? I know. Just in general, Evelyn, getting in the car and going anywhere has felt like a much bigger deal. And I've spent a lot of time these last few months thinking about how to streamline and make my traveling existence a little bit easier. I've actually ordered a new harp. I've been working with Thormland to make a new kind of version of the Ceilidh, which is going to be my tour model. And we've been shaving off excess wood. We've been trying to make it just a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter, possibly taking off the top string. And this is really so that it fits well into the Dusty Strings flight case with a soft case and with extra padding. I'm doing so much flying this year, and I just wanted to feel really good about checking the instruments. So I know there's a lot of Thormland fans out there, and I'll, as soon as I have this new instrument, I'll share it and I'll let you know how it feels. It's just an even lighter, slightly smaller version of the Ceilidh, and I love these instruments. Kathy, I know that you're out there watching, and I bet you're curious about this new model. I know you're a Thormland fan. Let's see, I promise I'll start teaching in a minute, but it's so nice to touch base with you all, and it feels a little bit bittersweet given the occasion. Let's see, Claudia from Boston. Hi, Claudia. We've got Carol Fournier. Hi from Western Mass. Lovely to have you, Carol. On September 1st, I'm going to give a bunch of dates at the end of this in case people are curious where I'm playing. But we're going to play the Harp Weaver record from top to bottom at that tiny chapel in West Whatley on September 1st. I'm pretty sure the tickets are going to go like that, but somehow we're going to have a whole string quartet, myself and the guitarist Kyle Sana, for a night at the Watermelon Wednesday series on September 1st. I don't even know if that's a Wednesday, but just FYI. Let's see, Jane. Hi, Jane. Emily. Oh, sorry. I get it. Jane from Finland, connecting everything. Hi, Emily. Great to have you. Great to see your name pop up on Harp Talk. Emily's a great harp player who does lots of really interesting pop arrangements. And Emily, you'll be able to tell it better than I can, but great to have you here. Let's see. Sarah Loveland Gill. Hi, Sarah. Oh, it's so nice to have you all here. Okay, I'm going to get started, but I think most of you probably got my email. This is going to be the last Harp Talk in its current format. And listen, I'm not saying it's gone forever. For those of you who've been kind of in touch with Harp Talk for years, you'll know that there was almost a year where I stopped it. And then when the pandemic hit, I started it again. So I'm still keeping the Facebook page open. I'm still going to run intermittent workshops under the Harp Talk name. So if you're not on my email list, be sure to sign up. That's the most kind of sure way to get notified about these happenings. But in the fall, I'll do at least a couple of workshops. I might do them over Zoom. I'm going to do a launch for my new technique book later in the summer. I think that's going to be quite an occasion. I'm going to invite my harp teacher, Isabel Muris, to be part of that, and my publisher, and we're just going to talk about teaching the harp and technique. And I'm really excited. I've been putting a lot of thought into this book and a lot of things that actually I wouldn't be thinking about if it weren't for the opportunity I've had this past year to teach so much. Just lots of thoughts about general physique, using the core. You all know the drill, things that I just feel are so important to playing freely and musically and maintaining a healthy body while playing the harp. So I'll let you know when that is. Let's see. Claudia, the September 1st concert is part of a series called Watermelon Wednesdays that I've been part of on and off for years and years. It's run by a guy called Paul. Called Paul. Who's great. I don't know. Oh, Paul Newland in Western Mass. And West Watley is a tiny, tiny little off the beaten track place, and there's a little chapel, and they do this wonderful acoustic music series there. That's September 1st. I don't know if the tickets are on sale yet, but they always sell out really quickly. I've not updated my website yet. As soon as I do, I will send out a newsletter with all the summer dates. And at the end of this Harp Talk, I'll list some as well. But all of this is just to kind of say, keep in touch. I'm still going to be doing lots of things. I'm just not going to do the monthly live thing. Everything's just getting a bit busier than it was. And yeah. But the Harp Talk umbrella will still be alive and well, and I am here for any questions you have via email or Facebook. Whenever I'm tuned into that, I go in and out of that. I'm a lot more active on Instagram. If anyone has Instagram, go ahead and follow me there. But yeah, be sure to ask me all of your harping questions this hour. I want to make sure that I'm leaving you with your questions answered. And I want to start by just doing some warm-ups. And we're going to do some arpeggio or some shape work. As I've been writing this book, I've been kind of dividing my thinking of harp technique into three main areas. And I think combine these three different kind of strands of technical focus create a well-rounded foundation for technique from which each individual player can then go on and kind of tailor the way they play to them, because we all are so different and our hands and our bodies are so different. But the kind of three strands that I'm focusing on are scale work. I think of it as linear work. When I'm working in linear or scale type of exercises, I'm really focusing on kind of decluttering the fingers, enabling my fingers to move fluidly up and down the harp without stumbling over one another. A big part of that is the space between the second finger and the thumb, which allows for these easy pathways up and down the harp. So that's one, scale work, linear work. The second one I'm calling shape work, and that's really arpeggios. I like to kind of stay away from the traditional names for things because I feel like in ways we've gotten stuck in a rut. Arpeggios to so many people means this. And to me, that's such a limited version of what chords, shapes can mean. And as we create muscle memory through learning as many of these shapes in as many inversions, in as many octaves, registers as possible, the more we're preparing ourselves for repertoire, the more we're developing a easy, connected relationship with our instrument. And, so often I meet students who tell me that they're completely paper trained and it's so difficult for them to get off paper. And I think a lot of that is ear work, kind of working to develop your ear. But I just think this idea of familiarizing yourself with your instrument has a lot to do with people's ease with their instrument and ease with not looking at the music. So shape work, different chords, is really just getting you familiar with your strings. And I think a really great way to start moving away from the page and focusing on your instrument. I think sometimes the page is not just a note map, a kind of guide. I think it's just sometimes these like a security blanket in a way. And we just need to move away from that and get used to listening and watching. And shape work is a great way to do that. The third strand of technique is individual finger strengthening. Make sure that we're not reliant on the thumb or the second finger as our strong voices, but actually all of our fingers are equally comfortable as individual voices when they're called on to be that. And this comes into play a lot when we're using our right hands as a melody voice and also as an accompaniment voice, which we often do as harp players. It's something that's unique to our instrument, is that we have multiple voices on both hands and we can play a melody and throw in accompaniment notes with the other fingers. So training our hands to be able to make the melody sing and have this kind of under voice of accompaniment in one hand is challenging and a really worthwhile focus as well. So with all that said, we're just going to do a little tiny bit of all of that. If you have your harps, let's get in the key of F major. F major, and we're just going to do this real slowly, but I'd encourage you to play along. If you're new as well, if you're interested in handouts, there's no technical handout this week. There's just a waltz. It's up on my website, maevegilchristmusic.com/handouts, I think. And we'll get to that waltz in a minute, and I'm happy with that waltz. I think it's really fun. But for now, let's just choose a shape. And the shape we're going to choose is an F major 6. I can see myself in the screen, and I'm just looking like a sweaty mess. I turned off the air conditioner because it's too loud. So if I look very hot, I am very hot. Okay, F6, F, A, C, and D. We're starting with the right hand. In fact, screw that. We're starting with our left hand. F, A, C, D, we're breathing in from the core. We're feeling our spine supported. So often you hear the word straighten your spine, but to me, engaging your core is a much healthier way to do that. You're not just jerking your back into a position. It's coming from this strong centered place. Let's go down to our bottom F6, an F triad with the 6th on top, and we're going to block it up and down the octave. When we block it, listen to all of the notes. Don't take the togetherness for granted. Make it happen exactly together. And up the octave, and down the octave. Listen to those inner voices. See if you can hear the difference. When I lean on the 3rd and 2nd finger, the chord sounds like this. Da, you can hear that tone and that tone. And then the outer voice is F and D. Da, you really hear the D and the F. So play around with that. Just blocking. You can block all over the harp and move back as you do so. After that, we're going to anchor on the one just below middle C. I'm sure you all know where I'm going with this. We're going to do some individual finger strengthening before we move to the arpeggio. And go ahead and anchor your third and your thumb, and let's play the F and the C together. And again. You might find that they don't come exactly together. Maybe the bottom note is bedonging. In that case, lean on the top note. Make sure that you're not jerking. This shouldn't come from the hand. Try kind of squeezing the strings, and then it's like an embrace. I find that if I squeeze the strings, I'm able to more tenderly pull them in all the way to the fist. Replacing the fourth and second, we're going to do the third and the thumb. Here we go. Getting them exactly together. Let's anchor the fourth and the third and do the 2 and the 1 together. Oh, that wasn't exactly together. The top note came first. So leaning into the bottom C. And now let's do this. We're going to do 4 and 2 to 3 and 1, and we're going to try and create a slur. So if this was a string player, they'd go dum, dum, and we're trying to kind of set that intention of phrasing as we do this. 4, 2 to 3 and 1. Try it. An octave down. An octave up, moving back. I'm holding the harp between my knees. Great, we're going to do the same thing with the right hand before we divide and play arpeggios. So let's grab that shape, that F6, all the way up the kind of treble area of the harp. Again, moving back, holding the harp between the knees and feeling very free up here in my shoulders. And then we're going to find the one above middle C. We're going to anchor 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's try 4 and 3. So keeping 2 and 1 anchored, 4 and 3. So when that happens, it meant I was being too reactive. I wasn't thinking properly. So I squeezed the notes. I've lost track of what we were doing. Was it 4 and 2? Let's say it was 4 and 2. 3 and 1, anchoring 4 and 2. Four and 3, that was what we were doing. 4 and 3. I had to lean on the inner note. And then anchoring 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. Exactly together, feeling the strings, squeezing the strings, and then breathing out as you play. So no jerking or even pulling. Let's stay here in the right hand, and we're now going to separate the notes. Before we go up and down, we're going to do the first 4 notes. Make sure that the F up the octave is placed before I play the thumb. And then I'm going to set 3, 2, 1 as a group. So not individual fingers, as a group. I play the 4th finger, and then I play 3, 2, 1 as a chord. I'll demonstrate that in real time. And again. Make sure you're setting that 4th finger before you play the thumb. Otherwise, there'll be a moment where there's no fingers on the string. The only moment that we want to have no fingers on the string is after we've played that last chord, and then we end up in a relaxed fist right here. And again. If you feel like it's jerky or lumpy, lighten up a little bit. We don't need to play quite so heavily. I find that actually being further back helps me. If I start very close to my harp, it feels like this enormous journey to get up here. Or I feel really crunched in my shoulders. Then we're going to come down that. We're going to play 3, 2, 1, the 4th finger, and then set 2, 3, 4. And again. Is your 3, 2, 1 coming exactly together? Because mine's not. So often to achieve perfection, we try harder. Our natural inclination is to pull harder or to tense up a little bit in preparation, and it's so counterproductive. It's this letting go motion that we need to integrate. We need to integrate into our speed playing, our fast playing, in order to keep a relaxed wrist and fingers. It gives us more control over the tone that we create. So feel the 3rd, the 2nd, and the thumb, and try actually exhaling as you play that top chord. And then trickle down. And then let's make it even. Decca, 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 decca. I'm on fast forward. Do that as long as you like. Now we're just going to go up and down the arpeggio, trying to get an even sound across the board, lightening up, even rhythmic flow. If you have to go slower, that's just fine. You're trying to create this kind of swell. Ending up in the fist. Super relaxed. Left hand. We're going to start by coming up. 4th finger comes under. I'm going to slow this down. If I'm going way faster than you're comfortable, absolutely take it at your own speed. I would just say if you're taking it a lot slower, be a lot more conscious of your touch, of playing lightly. When we play slower, it's more natural for us to sink into the notes, and we're just trying to create awareness. So we're choosing our touch, we're controlling our tone regardless of speed. Let's try it slower. 4th finger comes under. We hop up, cluster exactly together, gentle together. If you want, take it faster. If you want, take it slower. I'm going to play a little faster. You know, this idea of kind of singing it or even just having a think about how you want something to sound before you play it is an incredibly important stage of manifesting your musicality. If you don't think about how you want something to sound, you won't be able to control how it sounds. And so even if you're a more elementary player, an intermediate player, and certainly if you're an advanced player, start thinking now about how you want your tunes to sound, how you want your tone to sound. What's the emotional environment that you want to create with this music? And this even goes for an exercise like this. I want to create something connected, kind of water-like. There's something wave-like about these exercises. It's really powerful, and the power of intention is really our main way to phrase as harp players, that and subtle dynamics. I'm going to now move up and down, just letting the arpeggio flow. In my left hand, I really think of my lower arm and the back of my palm as kind of gliding, as if you're kind of gently dusting a surface. That's the kind of motion I want my arm to make. And I've created enough room between my fingers and my thumb that I don't ever need to go up and down with my wrist or my arm. If you find that you're putting your wrist way up or down as you're doing these arpeggio exercises, reevaluate your position. You shouldn't have to have much movement at all. The back of the palm is an extension of the forearm. The fingers drop down. The thumb goes up. Easy movement. Let's slow it down. Leaning into the middle of the line and coming away at the outer edges. For those who want to, I'm going to speed it up and lighten up to make that happen. If you want to do both hands, feel free to do that. When I'm doing both hands, if one note doesn't sound or if I miss one note in one hand, I keep the general flow. We've got two voices now to kind of keep that rhythmic engine or stream of eighth notes. So if my right hand misses a note, my left hand's got its back, and vice versa. Make sure your shoulders are relaxed. Make sure your jaw's not clenched. There's so many ways that we can make this trickier. Often when I come down, I like to double up notes. You can play with fingering and definitely play with speed, play with different rhythms. Or just make up rhythms. That's a great way of ensuring that you've got complete evenness between the fingers. Any questions regarding technique, this exercise, or anything in your own kind of technical practice before we get to the waltz? Yes, no, maybe so. Maybe I'll leave some time for you to write any questions if you have them, and I'll play you this waltz that we're going to look at today. I think a lot of you already have the handouts. If anyone is here and doesn't know where that is, you can head on over to my website, maevegilchristmusic.com/handouts, and you can pick up in the upcoming section. There's There's handouts for sale there. So this waltz, you might remember a few Heart Talks ago, I wrote a jig called Sweet Katrina Rose for my friend, my best friend from childhood's first baby girl. And I liked it, but I didn't love it. So I actually kept writing. And this waltz is the next version of Sweet Katrina Rose. So I wrote it as waltz just to separate it. I didn't want to confuse you all. But I think this is also just going to be called Sweet Katrina Rose. And this just feels like a more special melody to me. I love a good, joyful waltz. So I hope you enjoy it too. It goes like this. I'll do it one more time. So a dance, really. And if you're feeling a little intimidated by those lever changes, I was doing more lever changes than is actually necessary. And I'm going to break down a little bit some options that you have harmonically. Let me just check in with the comments. Sarah, if I find my cross under is lacking, does that mean I'm moving my wrist? No, kind of the opposite, Sarah. If you find that you're moving your wrist a lot, what it usually means is that there's not enough space between your fingers and your thumb. So like if I'm here and I'm doing a scale, if my fingers are very close to one another, it's really difficult to put the fourth without kind of doing some movement with your wrist. So if you feel like there's a lot of wrist and arm movement going on, I think the first place to look is the space between your second fingers and your thumb. And especially if you've come to the harp later in life, it's just really not natural for us to want to space out that hand. But it's really important, and it's really important to do this technical focus time because it's the only way that you'll train your hand to do that. And without this space, you're just going to be running into walls over time. And like Sarah, I know how musical you are, and particularly for those of us whose musical mind is perhaps more advanced than our technical work on the harp. This space thing is really important. It's literally going to allow you pathways up and down your instrument. So we've all got such limited time practicing, but I would say put aside a good 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the beginning of each practice to do this shape work. Because that's the only time that you're going to be able to really focus on feeling your hands, on teaching your hands these new shapes and creating the muscle memory, which is going to stand to you as you move into your repertoire practice. I hope that helps. Evelyn, regarding exercise, I can't double the speed. It's just frustrating. Better for me to increase a little at a time. That's fine, Evelyn. And everybody, do you know that, like, take this advice with a grain of salt. What I would say is that most people don't increase the speed because they can't increase the speed and get it accurately. And actually, for those of you who've been coming to these for a long time, you'll know that I'm very into this kind of half speed, double speed thing. But what I'm also trying to teach is this idea that learning to make mistakes and exist at a speed in an inaccurate way is as important as nailing the notes. So when you're pushing yourself into speed or tempos that are above your comfort level, you're not doing so with the immediate aim of being able to play it. What you're trying to teach your body and your hands is how to not play, if that makes sense. If this is my exercise, I'm guessing like the trickiest bit is getting that fourth finger under and your hand up there in time. So actually, if the metronome is on here and you're trying to go dig it, dig it, dig it, dig it, dig it, maybe you'll just get as far as this, kind of moving your hand up but not playing notes. And then maybe over time you might get like the last two notes of that chord. Gradually, you'll start to get more accuracy. But it's this idea of, instead of slowly building up in a more kind of perfect way, we're actually allowing ourselves the freedom to make a ton of mistakes, but think of the bigger picture. Think of where our arms are gliding. Think of maintaining a relaxed physique. Perhaps being comfortable just skating over the notes. So many of my elementary and intermediate students get concerned with like the buzzes that they're making. And so much of that is stuff that will just work itself out over time. It's just like little kinks in the journey. But unless you're kind of allowing yourself to exist, even if it's one note at a time, in these tempos and counting in your head while you're not playing, it's hard for me to think that the body will, or the hand will know how to exist at that tempo. So it's trying to incorporate this slightly more conceptual practice, as well as the very effective slow and steady practice method, which I think we're all familiar with. Evelyn, another thing I would say is if it's multi-octave is giving you a hard time, try within one shape position to change speed. Perhaps it would be this. That's your half speed going to. And even within this one shape, changing your touch, going from this more anchored touch to this lighter touch. Okay, great. So there's a few things that I want to, I know already I'm going to go over time, so I hope that's okay. For those, not for those. Okay, there's three things that I want to cover. I'm looking at my notes on the floor. The first is ornamentation. In a tune like this, I feel like ornaments just make it sparkle. And there's three main ornaments that I'm using. I'm going to give examples for those who are looking at the music, just so you can kind of make a little note. There's the ascending grace note or the ascending cut, which isn't really traditional. In a lot of traditional music, we use single grace notes, also known as cuts, all the time. So if my target melody note is F, it's very traditional to cut down to that note. It's not so traditional to cut up, although it does happen. And it's certainly not so traditional to kind of think of it as being slurred. And a lot of the time when you see a grace note in the music cutting up to the melody note, I'm imagining it as almost kind of being slurred. So an example of that is in measure 47. We've got the A and we've got a G before the A. That part of the music sounds like this, for those of you who aren't looking at the music. And you can really hear the pitch of that G. And usually I'm suggesting that we hear less pitch, that we barely know that the ornaments are there. Here, actually, we're trying to create this D. So put your thumb there on the target melody note. And with your second finger, just imagine that you were able to create a connected slur from the G to the A. D-um, D-um, D-um. For all of these, try them in different places in the harp. I'm almost leaning more into the grace note than I am into the melody note. Another ornament I use a lot is the roll, also pretty traditional. And actually the measure before that, 46, you can see that I'm rolling onto the F. The melody is. That's no ornaments. I'll do it again with no ornaments. Now I'll do it with ornaments. So I'm rolling onto the F. And in this occasion, I can pull this out of my face. On this occasion, I don't want to emphasize the ornaments. They're just kind of in the background. So I'm really leaning onto my third finger on the F. The flow of the melody, the sound of the melody is unaffected. It's exactly as it was without any ornaments. And if I were you, I would just create a loop of that little phrase. Dum, do, dum, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2. And then gradually add 1 and 2 on A. They're squeezed very tightly against the target melody note. 2, 3. 2, 3. 2, 3. So we've got the ascending grace note, we've got the roll, and then we've got this kind of floral area. And let me find like 53, 54. You can see I've got these little twiddly bits before the melody, and that doesn't feel super traditional to me. That feels almost more like classical ornamentation or kind of old-fashioned like ragtime-ish ornamentation, but I love it. It's something on the harp I love. So let's try this together. The melody in those sections is just a scale: G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. Because I'm adding this ornamentation, I'm actually playing that all with my thumb. But just for context, let's try together and finger that 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're trying to create this dee da 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 da. This nice connected phrase. Let's try that with 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1 before we go into all this ornament stuff. Dee, dee, da, dee, da, da, da. Again. Dee, da, 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 da. Now, use your thumb for the whole thing, but try and create that same phrase line. Dee, da, 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 da. So I'm using dynamics much more to control that phrase line. And then beneath each of those thumbs, we're going to put in this little, is it a third? Yeah, I'm doing a third for every one. So for the G melody note, I'm putting an extra G, E before it, and then leaning on the third note, the G melody note. Moving up in thirds, really slowly, it's this. But do this for me. Try and really lighten up the first two and exaggerate the last one. I kind of feel like I'm ringing out something that's wet. Diggity, diggity. There's this kind of ringing feeling the way I'm using my wrist. So I am kind of using my wrist here. Well, I don't know if you can see it. I'm definitely using the muscles in my wrist. Is that making sense to everybody? And then we just lighten them up and speed them up. So if the tempo is here, 1, 2, 3. With no ornaments. With ornaments. That wasn't very good. Sometimes I make it an A chord. We'll talk about that in a second. This is something I do a lot when I'm playing anything that I just kind of want to harpify. It feels like a beautifully harp-like kind of floral way of messing with a melody. Another thing I do a lot, not in this arrangement, but this just made me think of it, is I do these little swooshes. Technical term. Swoosh, swooshy. Where I just play the scale notes before the target melody note. So it would be D, E, F if the target melody note was G. And it's that same kind of ringing sensation because I want the G, the last note of the 4, to really ring out as the melody. If you wanted to go really indulgent, you could play with that. That's some notes on ornamentation. Any questions? Is that making sense to folks? Claudia, to help to let go of accuracy to get comfortable with speed and placing. I think so. I just think it's necessary. I think enough great harp players just hit a wall. And when I think about those who seem to have most effortlessness at speed, it's often those who come from traditional backgrounds. And the thing about coming from a traditional background is you're playing right from the moment that you start playing your instrument. You're playing with other people, often situations where they're much faster than you and they're much better players. And so you just get used to kind of hanging out at that speed. So this is all kind of trying to emulate that experience in a way that's hopefully more accessible for people who don't come from a traditional background. Okay, I'm going to move on from ornamentation. Feel free to throw in any questions. I'm just going to have a look at some melodic variation. So again, if you've got the music, I'm going to look at the difference between 46 and 47 and 66 and 67. So 46, 47, 66, 67, where I'm outlining the same part of the tune, but I've just created a slightly different melodic variation. And these tiny changes in ornamentation and in melodic variation can make such a difference in the aliveness of a melody, feeling like a melody is a living thing. And when we perform a piece, that's what we want the audience to hear. We don't want them to be visualizing the measures and the chord shapes as we go along. We want them to be in the story of the music and being carried along. And I find that making little nuanced differences in sections via variation, improvisation, and via ornamentation, it really helps to make the music sound more alive. So in this part of the melody, where are we? It's towards the end of the B section. The phrase is, or something like that. It's definitely an emotional climax. In fact, let me play the whole B section leading up to that so that you can feel that as the emotional climax. Here we go, we're building. We land on this F minor chord, D minor chord, and it really kind of is intended to kind of pull the heartstrings. So that's a moment that I do little differences. The first one that I'm kind of isolating to point out, 46 to 47, I'm just going, so I go F, C, A. When I come to that moment again later, I go even higher. I go up to C, the minor seventh of the D minor 7 chord. And the higher you go, the more you're kind of milking that moment. Let me play them both for you again. Number 1. Number 2. And there's so many different ways we could do that. Another one. We could keep it more simple. We could come down. There's so many ways to kind of control that moment, but even recognizing what the moment is doing within the kind of emotional arc of the whole piece allows us to make choices, creative choices, interpretive choices. Does that make sense to everybody? Let me check in here. Oh, you're welcome, Evelyn. All right, I'll move on. Feel free to write any questions. I'm just going to talk a little bit now about the harmony. For all of these arrangements, it's really important to me, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that these aren't just arrangements that you read and play as written. They're not intended to be that. They were never intended to be that. Traditional music was never intended to be that. And certainly my tunes aren't intended to be that. For some reason, the harp world has gotten so dependent on this idea of arrangements. Teach me this arrangement, teach me that arrangement. Whereas when we look at other instruments, fiddle players, pipers, flute players, the idea of an arrangement isn't something that they're learning. They're learning different people's variations in order to build their own vocabulary to become unique interpreters of the tune. And that's not just the very advanced players, that's just how people learn. And while arrangements are a wonderful resource for learning shapes, harmony, creating repertoire that you can easily play, I just hope that you don't stop once you've learned an arrangement. Use that arrangement to become the best musician you can, and that means deconstructing and analyzing elements of it. My first stop, if I took home an arrangement like this, and I'm just going to go back to the beginning, would be to go through the harmony and make sure I know what it is. Maybe that's just taking your red pen and writing the chords out. If I were to start at the beginning of this tune, that's a big F chord, and feel free to start writing it now and then continue after the session. F, C is an inversion of C, and we're going to talk about inversions in a second. D minor, B flat, an inversion of an F chord, G minor 7, D7, non-diatonic chord alert, so fun, C, F, C, an inversion of C, D minor, let me make sure I'm playing the chords I've written, B flat, these are all passing tones, F, C, oh, before I forget, often when I get to the end of a phrase, I do this little, for example, measure 15, I'm doing that. And I often go low. That's just to differentiate the sound from the melody. It gives us a cadence, it gives us different kind of tonal color. I won't go on with all the chords unless does anyone have any questions about what any of the chords are? But it's so important for you to know this information. Also, for those of you who have trouble memorizing, it's going to make memorizing so much easier if you know the harmony. Once I've written down the harmony, the next step is to familiarize myself with these chord shapes. If you know it's an A7 chord, it's not going to be much use unless you know how to play an A7 chord or an F chord or a B flat chord. And when you're learning it, learn all the inversions. Becoming familiar with first and second inversions is going to be a way for you to create a much more kind of sophisticated, engaging line to your harmony. For example, if I were to play that first line with root positions, F, C, D, F, F, C, it's fine, but it's lumpy. My chords are moving all over the place, and I want to create a more elegant line so that my chords feel related. There feels like a melodic relationship between all the bass tones. Inversions allows me to not travel such distances to get my chord. So I have my F chord, root position. Then I'm going to move to a first inversion of a C chord, which starts on the E, just a step away from the F. So immediately they feel more connected. It creates a more melodic line. I step down to the D, B flat. Now instead of going back to a root position F chord here, I'm doing a first inversion. If I did a G chord, I could do the first inversion of that. This is a D7 chord. If you're not familiar with the D7 chord, let's learn it right now. For the kind of, there's 3 non-diatonic chords that I use in this arrangement. One is D7 That is the 6-7 chord of F major. F major, if you count up from the root, F, G, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's the 6th degree of the scale. We're giving it a major third. It becomes a D7 chord. I use an A7. Have a think about what is the A, or what is an A major chord to F major? What degree of the scale is it? It's the 3rd degree of the scale, and we're giving it a major third. And the 3rd non-diatonic chord that we use is a G7, beginning on the 2nd degree of the scale, giving it a major third. So whenever you see these chords written, always check the 3rd. If you see a G7 written, don't assume that you have the 3rd correct. It's almost always, like in this type of piece, which is drawing on kind of almost music hall or vaudeville-esque harmony, kind of very basic pop culture chords that would have been prevalent at the turn of the century. It's almost always just just one note of the chord is non-diatonic, and it makes it kind of perfect for the harp, but because we can make that one lever change and totally change the harmonic landscape without having to do a bunch of levers. When you're reaching for those levers, make sure you're using your thumb up and down so that you're not moving your whole hand, but you can still keep your left hand kind of in the area should you want to play a bass note at the same time or right before or after you've done that lever change. So I know I just threw a bunch of information at you. Do you have any questions for me about anything? Claudia's asking, I've never heard you play the calm the same way twice, but how do my classical compatriots deal with that? Oh, well, when I'm working, Claudia, do you mean like in the context of the Harp Weaver album when I'm working with a classical string quartet? That piece in particular, I often play solo or just with a guitar, which leaves me much more room to move. But when I'm arranging my music for chamber groups, for musicians who I know are classically trained, I'll write their parts in such a way that I can still have freedom to change mine. I won't change some things. I won't change the structure. I won't change the basic harmonic framework. But within that framework, I've still got a lot of freedom. Yeah, so that's just how I write for myself. I rarely write out my own parts, but I know their parts back to front, and that allows me to kind of work with what they're doing and still have freedom myself. I hope that makes sense. And if I were playing that piece, the Calm, for those of you who don't know, is a tune of mine, a very kind of slow, breath-filled piece in C major. If I was working with a guitarist or another instrumentalist, the chord structure is so kind of simple in that they could lay down the basic chords, and I could still feel free to interpret it in my own ways. And that's how I like to do it. It enables me to keep this music fresh and engaging. Let's see. Anne Bauer, you mentioned an A chord in this piece, but not on the first page. Yes, actually, make sure I'm not telling a lie there, Anne. Is there an A chord? Yes, there is. So it's a couple of places, like measure 21 is actually the same phrase as around measure 5, 6, but I've chosen to make the last chord of that measure in 21 an A chord. You can see I've just stuck the C sharp under the E. So it's a very brief kind of implication of A major. For those of you who are more elementary players and want to deconstruct this arrangement, by all means do so. Don't feel like you have to be able to play everything in there to make this piece your own. But that might be something you took out if you didn't want to bother with a C sharp there. You could just play and and not play the C sharp. But with the C sharp, and it sounds like this. It's just a lovely little colorful moment. So that's implying the A chord. In measure 34, again, we've got an A7 on the last beat of the measure. That's the root. 5th, 7th, 3rd, and 5th there. And I'm sure there's a couple, well, I'm not sure actually. On the last page, I'm just scanning. I'm not seeing any in the B section. So just in the A section there. All right. Well, let me see what I have to tell you. There will be a new technique book out later in this summer, and I'm thinking of doing a kind of online book launch via Zoom. I'm going to be inviting my harp teacher, Isabel Miras, who was and continues to be a real inspiration to me. My publisher, Andrew, will probably be there, and we'll just be talking about technique. For those in America, I'll have a certain amount of books that I'll sign there for them. For those who are interested in my other books, my publisher just this week launched the new website so that people all over the world, Anna, this includes New Zealand, you can get the books with local shipping rates. This has been a real challenge because the harp community, as you know, is so global at this stage. It's been really difficult because people have had to pay enormous shipping fees for my books. Now I've not changed it on my website. It will happen this week. But if you just go to my publisher, 80 Days Publishing, and go to my page, it now ships from that site all over the world at local shipping rates. There's a whole bunch of books up there. Yeah, just go and browse. There's a rhythm book. There's a few months ago, I released a new original composition and arrangement book, but I'm very excited about this technique book. It's been something that's kind of mulling in my mind for a while, and there's a lot more text. There's a lot more just my thoughts on being with my instrument. So yeah, that will be out later in the summer. In the fall, I'll definitely do at least a couple of online kind of general workshops, and I always love to hear what's helpful for you guys to learn, what kind of topics you'd like to cover in those workshops. So do keep in touch. I'm going to be teaching at the Somerset Online Folk Art Festival in a few weeks. Be sure to sign up for that if you haven't already. There's an incredible array of different teachers and happenings going on for that weekend. I'm going to be teaching at Silk Road's Global Musicians Workshop, which really focuses on the kind of philosophy behind the notes, collaboration, ensemble playing. That's going to be online as well, probably for the last time this year. All the instructors are going to be connecting in Boston in August for that. It's hosted by New England Conservatory, but it's online for the students. The roster is incredible. It's including guests like Rhiannon Giddens, Angelique Kudo, I think I'm saying her name wrong, the incredible African singer. Who else do we have? Kinan, an amazing Armenian clarinet player. Mike Block runs it, an amazing cellist based in Boston. Kinan Ismay. I'm forgetting everybody else, but check out the GMW page, Global Musicians Workshop. It's on the Silk Road homepage. Performances in the next few months, believe it or not, I'm going to be playing in Nebraska, New York City. I can hardly believe this is happening. You know, I feel like I've just ripped off my mask. But I'm going to be in Nebraska, New York City, New York State, Rockport, Massachusetts, Western Mass. I'm going to be playing a lot of shows with the incredible Pakistani singer Arooj Aftab. If you've not heard her latest album, Vulture Prince, go ahead and listen to that. It is just so beautiful. We're going to be playing that album in New Hampshire, in Austria, in LA, in Portland, in, I think, Boise. Am I saying that right? Boise, Indiana. I'm going to be playing a solo recital in Ireland in September, fingers crossed. And that's just through September. So really, I mean, live music is coming back and I'm stoked. A lot of my Harp Weaver performances are going to be happening in 2022. But I can't wait to bump into you all down the line in person, and do keep in touch. Thank you so much for being here week in, or month in and month out during the pandemic. It really was a gift to me to be able to connect with so many harp students. It gave me focus, it gave me community, and I've learned an inordinate amount through teaching, both through Harp Talk and my private roster of students, which I'll continue in a slightly less symmetrical fashion, but that's something that I don't want to lose now. So thank you so much for being part of this community. I'm just going to check in case there's any other festivals questions. Claudia is asking, Isabel was the introducer on the Edinburgh Harp Festival. Yes, Isabel Muris is